On Capitol Hill, tensions between the Senate and House are as old as time, and it's not unusual for the Senate Majority Leader and the House Speaker to be at odds, even when they're in the same party. But what is unusual is making the rift public. That's what's taking place between Leader John Thune and House Speaker Mike Johnson over several high-profile pieces of legislation. Capitol Hill correspondent Erik Rosales joins us with more. Erik.
Hey, good evening, Veronica. Folks, here's a question for you. Should U.S. senators be able to sue the U.S. government, or in this case, the Department of Justice, for up to $500,000 of your tax dollars if phone records were seized without their knowledge? Well, that was the provision that the U.S. Senate tucked into the recently passed government funding bill, which the president signed into law. House Speaker Mike Johnson publicly said that he and his colleagues were blindsided by the provision added at the last minute.
I was very angry about it. I was. And a lot of my members called me and said, "Did you know about it?" We had no idea. That was dropped in at the last minute. And I did not appreciate that, nor did most of the House members. Many of them are very angry about that.
The Senate drafted the proposal after 8 senators learned their phone records were seized by the Biden-era Justice Department as part of its so-called Arctic Frost investigation into alleged efforts by allies of President Trump to overturn the 2020 election. So last night, the House voted unanimously to repeal the provision. The bill now heads back to the Senate. However, it will likely sit and rot in the Senate graveyard and go nowhere.
When it comes to allowing a federal government agency, the Justice Department in this case, to collect information, private information on individual senators, we think that's a violation of separation of powers under the Constitution. Obviously, Jack Smith violated the law in the way he went about that. This is something that needed to be addressed.
So that means the provision that was signed into law with the funding bill stays.
Everything House Republicans do is for show. They can't even get a commitment from Senate Republicans to take up legislation to remove this multi-million-dollar taxpayer-funded slush fund to benefit corrupt Republicans.
Even some Republicans whose phone records were targeted think having taxpayers foot the bill sets a bad precedent.
I'm all for accountability. I mean, I had my phone tapped, so I'm all for accountability. Don't get me wrong, but I think taking taxpayer money is not the way to do it. The way to do it is tough oversight.
But some Republicans say the government must pay.
People who are going to issue subpoenas in the future against private citizens to get their phone records without a court order, without a warrant, have to think twice. And if the government doesn't pay, you're going to get more of this. So the only way you're going to prevent this in the future is for somebody to be held liable and the government pay.
Also this week, there was infighting over the release of the Epstein files. The House passed it unanimously, thinking that the Senate would make changes to protect victims' names from being released. But Leader Thune dismissed Speaker Johnson's push to amend the legislation and passed it without any new provisions. Both leaders do say that they have a solid bond and are on the same page, but that could be tested in the coming weeks when several contentious spending bills need to be passed in both chambers. At the Capitol, Erik Rosales, EWTN News Nightly.